We'll take it 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. At this time, we'll ask everyone to stand that is able as we recite our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now call this meeting to order. If you will please silence your cell phones at this time. We'll give you a couple of moments to do that. All right, for those of you who do not have a copy of the agenda or who are attending for the first time, we will concern ourselves with cases that are on consent. These are cases that have been reviewed by the board and by the professionals from various departments in the county and to which there is no known opposition at this time. We have discussed these in our work session. Certain staff comments and stipulations have been made, and we do not anticipate any further discussion is needed for a decision. So as we go forward, the County Zoning Division Manager, Mr. John Peterson, will read each case into record. Mr. Peterson will then ask you to raise your hand so that you can signify your presence. If you are here in opposition to a case that is currently on consent, Mr. Peterson will ask you to identify yourself as that case is read into the record. We will then pull that case off of consent and hear it as part of our regular case agenda. We will then vote on all the cases still on consent at one time. Once we have approved the cases on consent, we will move to our regular case agenda. With that being said, we are ready to address the consent cases. Mr. Peterson, will you take it from here?
And thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Before we start the consent, there is one case on today's printed agenda, which has been continued until next month, and this case will not be heard. That's the variance case V42 of 2024, Eugenia Pavlova Miller. This case was continued until the April 10th, 2024 Board of Zoning Appeals hearing, so V42 will be heard next month. Moving on to the consent agenda. Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals variance hearing consent agenda for March 13th, 2024. First case on consent is variance case V26. John Burke requests a variance to reduce the minor side setback adjacent to the north property line from required 10 feet to 0 feet in land lots 249 and 250 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north corner of Old Mountain Road and Mountain Park Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? The director show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V26? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V33, Dave Parker requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 35 feet to 24 feet in land lot 626 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Post Oak Tritt Road, north side of Alston Drive, west of Gelding Lane. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to the variance case of V33? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case of V34, Stephen M. Roden requests a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is a proposed approximately 576 square foot detached garage to the side of the principal building. Number 2, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for a proposed approximately 576 square foot detached garage from required 12 feet to 8 feet adjacent to the north property line. And number 3, reduce the rear setback for an accessory structure under 650 square feet for a proposed approximately 576 square foot detached garage required 40 feet to 32 feet in land lots 1078 and 1088 of the 17th District. The property is located on the south side of Cherry Hill Drive, west of Pine Valley Road. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V34? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case of V36, Dale Deno requests a variance to number 1, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 3 feet adjacent to the east property line. And number 2, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 4 feet adjacent to the west property line, and that is existing, in land lot 335 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Kimberly Drive, south of Sterling Trail. Staff recommends approval. Is the applicant present? Oh, let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case of V36?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V37, Jose Antonio Enzores requests a variance to reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 1,200 square foot storage building from required 100 feet to 10 feet adjacent to the east property line, 15 feet adjacent to the south property line, and 55 feet adjacent to the west property line in land lot 142 of the 20th District. Staff recommends the property is located on the south side of New Rutledge Road, east of Jim Owens Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, traffic comments. Number 2, sewer comments. Number 3, fire department comments. And number 4, no residential dwelling use or commercial use of the accessory structure. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V37? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V38, Arsenio Rubio requests a variance to number 1, reduce the setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 900 square foot 2-story shed for required 100 feet to 2 feet adjacent to the north property line, 20 feet adjacent to the west property line, 65 feet adjacent to the south property line, and 95 feet adjacent to the front property line in land lot 650 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Boys Drive, south of Mays Drive. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments. Number 2, fire department comments. And number 3, no residential dwelling use or commercial use of the accessory structure. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V38?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V39, HFA for Valvoline Instant Oil Change. Request a variance to number 1, reduce the minimum parking from required 12 parking spaces to 9 parking spaces. And number 2, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 70% to 76.9% in land lot 789 of the 19th District. The property is located at the eastern intersection of the east-west connector and Powder Springs Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, stormwater management comments, and number 2, traffic comments. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicants are here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V39?
No.
Let the record show there's no one opposed. And finally, variance case V40, Randy Hardy requests a variance to number 1, reduce the front setback from required 50 feet to 41 feet, which is existing. And number 2, reduce the setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing 1,095 square foot barn from required 100 feet to 72 feet in land lot 581 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Moon Road, east of Greens Lane. Staff recommends approval, subject to number 1, fire department comments, and number 2, no residential dwelling use or commercial use of the accessory structure. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V40? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Madam Vice Chair and Board.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. So it's back to this board. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Vote, please. Passes 4-0.
Okay, all those folks that were on consent, you're free to leave. And we're going to move into our held and continued part of the agenda next.
We will take a short pause while those folks leave quietly as we get ready for our regular consent agenda. And while we do that, I will go ahead and give you information about how we proceed with this agenda. All right? So in this, in our regular case agenda, Our procedure here is that Mr. Peterson will read a case into record. The applicant or any representative of that applicant who wishes to speak will be asked to come forward to be sworn in. Likewise, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in as well. The applicant and opposition will have 10 minutes each to present their case. All testimony will be made from the podium to my right, where we have full AV capabilities. Testimony will be followed by questions from the board and may be directed by either party. A reminder for the parties that are coming forth, you will have 10 minutes. If there are multiple parties within your group, you will have a total of 10 minutes to present to this board. With that understanding, Mr. Peterson, we are ready for our first case.
Okay, first case is variance case V15, Alexander Prop. Request a variance to allow an 8-foot fence adjacent to a public road right-of-way and in front of or to the side of a house in a residential district in land lot 1156 of the 19th district. The property is located on the south side of Clay Road, west of Barona Lake Drive. Is the applicant present? Yes. Yeah, let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V15? Got one?
Yes, one.
One? Okay, let the record show there's one person opposed. All those who wish to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
If you will state your name for the record, and if you will also give us an insight as to what your variance request is about.
Okay, good afternoon. A month ago, we had the first hearing, and just to refresh everybody's memory, I presented this, and I brought copies again of this little table. I made 5 copies plus the original 6 altogether of the noise level, because I took the measurements, and the EPA acceptable standard is, I think it's 45. Now I don't have the original in front of me, but it's right on top. 45 indoors and 55 outdoors. And because that road is so busy, the traffic is just overbearing. And my house is right, only like 50 feet from the road. And so in the front, the measurements came consistently for 3 days in a row, 48 indoors, 49 up to 50, and then for the outdoors, over 70. So it is really, way beyond the acceptable level. Because there were some questions and opposition last time, this hearing was rescheduled for today. And in the meantime, I was working with Ms. Florim from DOT, and I'm grateful for her help, very detailed instructions. And I made a sketch of where the fence goes, and finally they approved it. Everything was okay. The fence will go only 110 feet from the eastern side of the driveway, from the eastern edge of the driveway towards Barona Lake Drive, and I'm stopping short 30 feet from the corner of my property. So that's 30 feet. Plus, from the corner of my property, there are 54 feet to the edge of the Barona Lake Drive road. So it gives those residents 84 feet. And after I did all this, and one of the main things was to put the fence 15 feet from the edge of the road. And then I put the stakes, and then I talked to one of my neighbors, and she made a good suggestion. She said, put a taller, long stake where the first post will go so I can see if it blocks the view of the road. And I did that on Sunday, and then I talked to the neighbors on Monday and yesterday, and we are talking about 2 neighbors only that live on that street. And the first house over there is Miss Lindsay, and she just gave me a letter, a note saying, and I made copies. Because she came out, she went to that stop sign. That's what I was asking my neighbors. And she looked at it, and even though, people are scared of the unknown. But now that the stake is there, and they know, and it shows where the fence will go, she realized that it is set back further to the back from what she was expecting. And for me, it was the same result. When I went to that stop sign and looked at it from the Bronner Lake Road to the left, because that's a concern for people, getting out on Clay Road, that the fence, the way it is going to be built, 15 feet from the road and 84 feet from Bronner Lake Drive, it is not obstructing any view of the road. You can see clearly that little hill and the cars going over the hill, everything. So that's what basically Miss Lindsay from the 4975 Bronner Lake Drive, she confirmed, and she wrote that on the bottom. From my point, which was only briefly, I was able to see past the stake, and I could see the road. So, and basically for me, it was a relief too, that you can see the road clearly, because I want to be a good neighbor. And if I can, I want to do the best for my neighbors. So I'm glad that it, after the directions of DOT, it came out, nicely. So I hope that you will approve my request.
Does that conclude your time? Does that conclude everything that you want to share with us today?
Basically, yes.
Okay, if you will have a seat for us and let your opposition come up to speak, please. Thank you. Good afternoon. If you will, state your name and your proximity to the applicant.
Sure. So my name's Monica Baxter. I live on Bronner Lake Drive. I'm one of the 2 neighbors, and he's correct. There's only 2 of us. However, there is the Postal Service, Amazon, delivery. I mean, it's just not 2 cars going up and down this road every day. There's multiple people that travel the road. And I do agree, so Mr. Prop did put up a stake for us to go out and look, and we did go yesterday. And where the fence is going to be, it gives us view of the road. What I talked to the DOT about on Tuesday, I believe it was, I called, and my fear of what nobody is taking into account with that 84-foot sight line is Bronner Lake sits lower than Clay Road. So when you come up, you're sitting on a hill, and you're hanging on that hill waiting for traffic to clear for you to be able to jump out. So you have a delay of a couple of seconds that you might not if it was a level street to Clay Road. So I feel like that hasn't been taken into account, that we can't just pull out very quickly. We're hanging on a hill trying to get out. And also that there is a hill, that traffic is coming, and I know the speed limit says 45, but we all know nobody goes 45. They're coming over the hill very quickly. So it's a dangerous intersection now as it stands with no fence. My fear is that the fence will just make it worse. I understand the noise. It's noisy where I live, 2 houses away. But his concern is noise. My concern is someone getting killed at that intersection. It's also a very busy intersection because of the ambulances that go to Cobb Hospital and the tractor trailers now that go up and down Clay Road trying to get to the train yard in Austell. So the stake was extremely helpful. I do see that it's not going to block our view very much, but again, it's already a dangerous intersection. I just worry about anything else being put there that's going to make it even worse. So that really, and if it is approved, if the fence is approved, and we do find that it is more dangerous, what is my recourse to make it safer with the fence already there? Is there anything I can do? Can we get the traffic slowed down? Can we ask for a light at the intersection of Warren Road and Clay Road? Something so that we feel safe pulling out onto that road. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Since this case sits in District 4, and I am District 4 representative, I would actually like to call Ms. Lihia Florian. If you will come up, please, for a moment.
Good afternoon, Lihia Florian, DOT.
In your work with Mr. Prop over these last 30 days, can you share with us the developments and where DOT currently stands in their position with his variance request?
Okay, yes, sure. And I have some things to display. Can I talk over here? Okay, thank you. So this is the sketch that I provided Mr. Prop. What this shows is the line of sight triangle that we calculate to determine whether you can see. This Clay Road is an arterial with 45 miles per hour. It requires 500 feet of distance that you should be able to see on an ideal location towards your left, right? And the same if you were measuring from here that way, which is not the case. This is not concerned. The concern is from Blackwell, Brunner Lake, I'm sorry. So then this is the line. If you see that green line, that is the point of 500 feet from the intersection. And that's what I provided to him. So then you see this, this dotted line, the dashed line, that is the line where we recommended 15 feet from the edge of pavement, where the fence would not affect this line. It will clear the line of sight, just from a sketch point of view. Then Mr. Prop has submitted this. He has agreed to our determination. What he was saying is he's proposing now to build the fence not from his property line to property line, but from the eastern side of his driveway, the 15 feet from the edge of pavement as a minimum, and cut it back 30 feet from his property line. So that way, this line of sight that I presented before will be even more clear, right? See how it's very close right here in this location at the corner? So now he has 30 feet of extra space there. So having said that, I went to the field and saw his stake as he proposed today. So this is I am sitting on my car, which is how we measure the line of sight from the car, 3.5 feet from the ground, which is, I'm sitting on the car, and looking at the stop bar. And now I'm looking westbound. This is the stake that he put up. That's where the fence will be. You can see that I can see all the way to this car, which is almost the 500 feet distance. Now, Ms. Baxter is correct. There's a crest, as you can see. This is lower than this point. So then these cars might be approaching faster than as she said, and that is understandable. So I went to the other side. Now I'm standing, I'm sorry that this is not as clear as the other one, because so I'm standing where this car is. Now I'm sitting in my car in the same location. So you see that sign right there? It's the sign that tells you that Browner Lake Road is approaching. I have it in my phone, which I can zoom into that same picture so that you can see. I can't quite see the stake because it's small, but we can zoom into this right here. So now I'm sitting, as I said, in the car, looking eastbound. That is Bronner Lake Drive right there. Mm-hmm. So Ms. Baxter is correct. Her point of view is much lower than the cars approaching her. However, the fence will be located where this pole is. See that pole? In line with that pole. So it wouldn't be the fence that would be affecting or making that worse at this point, since he has moved it far back enough. And that is our position is that the fence is okay where he is proposing it. But yes, Ms. Baxter has an existing condition that is cars moving faster than they're supposed to, and maybe they're approaching the intersection of Bronner Lake faster than they're able to accelerate to get out of their road.
Thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions for any of the applicant, the opposition, or DOT? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I am ready to make my motion. Having considered DOT's comments and the applicant's efforts to work with DOT, and also considering the safety of our fellow constituents, I've been on that road, and that is a busy road. So, and I think that's a greater conversation, hopefully, that the county can look into assisting at a later date. But with respect to this variance, my motion is to approve V15 with the following conditions, and that the fence follow the guidelines as outlined with DOT's assistance, and that there will be post-inspection up after the fence is erected.
I second the motion.
Get your votes, please. Motion passes. Mr. Peterson, will you read our next case, please?
Okay, next case is variance case V25, Marietta Community Church Incorporated. Request a variance to, number one, allow parking in the required front yard of any R district for a non-single-family residential use. And number two, allow parking on a non-hardened and treated surface, which will be gravel or mulch, in land lot 318 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Ernest Barrett Parkway and on the south side of Rocky Ridge Road. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to the variance case of V25? Two. Okay. Let the record show there's two people here opposed. All those who wish to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I
If you will
appreciate it.
state your name for the record and take it away. You're ready.
Good afternoon. My name's Joel Larkin. I'm with the law firm Sams, Larkin and Huff in Marietta, and I appreciate the chance to be here today. If you recall, we heard this case last month. Marietta Community Church is located on the Ernest Barrett Parkway near the fire station, just this side of Rocky Ridge Road. This is a fairly new church, and it's grown and been very successful, and they're having a parking problem that has made it inconvenient for them and for the surrounding neighborhoods, requiring them to park in the public streets right now along the right-of-way. So this application is part of their effort to develop additional parking fields on the property, and there's two variance requests. Number one, they're seeking permission to extend their parking into the front setback. In commercial districts, that's done as a matter of course, but in residentially zoned properties, the requirement is that you set back to the building setback line. The second variance that they're requesting is permission to develop a gravel and or mulch parking field behind the church for use during construction and for overflow so that they can get off the streets and relieve the neighborhood of the inconvenience that the parking is causing them. We did hear this application last month, and there were a couple of concerns that I heard raised primarily by Commissioner Boulogne. The concern that was raised primarily was a line of sight distance similar to the prior application. Mr. Boulogne was concerned that the line of sight would be impacted by the existence of these parking spaces in the setback. We have provided during the last month a line of sight drawing to the DOT and to Mr. Boulogne that shows when you pull up to look to the left that the line of sight is not impacted. And I believe the DOT agrees with our review of that, but that was my understanding. So there are concerns that I've heard about traffic on Ernest Barrett Parkway. I've heard that it flies at 70 miles per hour. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But I had suggested as part of our efforts to work with the community that we consider some type of traffic calming device, not specifically something that we control, but I had looked online. You see those signs where it flashes your speed limit. I know whenever I see one, even if it's the same place every day, it causes me to look at my speedometer, and oftentimes I find that I'm going too fast, and it does slow me down. I've looked, you can purchase those pretty inexpensively. You know, we're willing to participate with the county to provide some type of calming device if the speed is what's causing the concerns. We're not proposing any new curb cut, so, you know, the existing condition complied with the line of sight when we built the church in the last 2 years. And it's our understanding, and our study shows that nothing that we're proposing would aggravate the situation. It won't impact, you know, how the current speed affects folks on Ernest Barrett Parkway. So we're seeking a variance that would allow adding 16 parking spaces to our existing parking lot in the right-of-way, and that would be to the left when you look out of the church. And I think, Mr. Boulogne, you're more concerned with those than the other. And then on the other side of our entrance, an additional 16 spaces that would be in that front setback. And we're happy here today. I've got folks from the church and our engineers who can respond to any questions and address any concerns that there are. Thank you.
Thank you. There were two gentlemen here in opposition. If you want to come forward, please. You both will have a collection of 10 minutes together. If you will introduce your name.
That's a picture from my back deck showing where the cars are parking. So this is what we look at.
If you will first start with
My name
stating
is
your
Stephen
name.
Hyde.
Thank you.
I live at 173 Stone Mill Lane. I own that house. My daughter lives there with me. I have other pictures also that I can show as to what we see, you know, where my grandson's playground is and what we sit and look at and how close it is. I know there's a buffer, but that buffer's stripped as to the amount of distance in between the fence and where they're wanting to park back there, you know. I have no opposition to what they do in the front. That's their business. But I don't want parking in the back of my yard, and I don't want the cars, I don't want the dust, I don't want the exhaust, I don't want the noise. I don't want any part of it. My house is directly behind that church. No one else has that view that I have to where they are. I know they will sit in temporary, but they continue to park there now. They don't stop. They don't stop even if they've been told not to or whatnot. I don't want them parking in the entrance to the neighborhood. If you've ever sat and come out of that neighborhood, as long as we have, 20 plus years, some people 30 plus years, it is a very, very difficult neighborhood to pull out of, okay? There has been so many times I have taken a right turn out of the neighborhood because I didn't want to try to cross it, to go left to go to Publix, to go to the grocery store. So in return, you take a right, then you take a right on Burnt Hickory, then you take a right on Mount Calvary, then you take a right on Dallas Highway and deal with that traffic to go all the way down just to make, you'll sit and make those many right turns because you're too scared to turn left, because it is that hard, it is that dangerous. And if people don't believe that they run 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, run it in the morning, run it in traffic. It's amazing, it'll blow your mind, you know, as to how aggressive people drive. And that's just normal, that's just everywhere. I don't care if you're on 92, you're on 41, or you're on Barrett Parkway, but Barrett Parkway is fast. It's a roller, you know, and that's coming from someone who's got and still possesses a Class A CDL. Over 15 years, local LTL with no tickets, so I can drive. And I'll sit and make those type of choices. My daughter was T-boned hard coming out of that with a friend of hers. She was in the passenger seat and she made a left. Misjudged it because of two cars. The problem was the car that was in the right, which she couldn't see, was probably running 70 plus. So it wasn't going at the same pace as the car going that they felt that they had ample time to turn left out in front of. That's probably been probably close to 12, 14 years ago, somewhere in that area. So, I mean, it just is. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can see just how close. I mean, that's just what we sit and look at. You know, and you sit and say it's temporary, but it'll never stop. You know, once they filled up the other places, they'll continue to sit and be in those spaces. It's not going to change. And until something's also done about them in the street, they don't need to be parking in our neighborhood. You know, they should have planned it out in the beginning. That's the 7 Ps right there, you know?
Understood. Are you complete with your
I am
statement?
done.
Okay, we will give the other
I
gentleman.
could probably go on for another 30 minutes, but.
Understood. Thank you so much for your testimony. If you will state your name, and you have a few minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. My name is Rusty Smith. I live on Rocky Ridge. I'm here today because, to be frank with you guys, I'm tired. So I know this is supposed to be the opposition piece. I want to acknowledge that Pastor Zach has been nothing but, he's a new pastor of the church. He's been nothing but great to work with, very communicative. We've built a great relationship to try and repair what began very tumultuous there with the church. So kudos to him. My opposition today is I'm asking you and I'm pleading with you that I would be in opposition of any variance that's approved today that doesn't have a stipulation that keeps the church from parking 150 feet from the stop sign on Rocky Ridge. I can't enforce anything. All I can do is ask. Pastor Zach is tasked with an impossible mission of trying to keep every member of his congregation from parking at a safe distance in our neighborhood, and I don't blame him for that. The law is what it is, and they can legally park within a certain distance to the stop sign, but it is not safe. It is not safe. I have an inlet. If you can go back to the previous slide where it's the actual satellite image, I have a gravel inlet right there. You'll see below where it says linear referencing. That's about 150 feet from the stop sign. I've asked to have that much room for my neighbors to try and ensure that no one gets killed as we're trying to pull out onto Barrett Parkway, or as somebody's trying to come in, we get in a head-on collision as we're trying to navigate the churches parking up and down the road. The reason I would be in opposition to any variance that does not have this stipulation is because as the church continues to grow, I see a scenario where they're back on our road, parking again because they've run out of parking, and once again, they will start parking where they can park as opposed to where they should park, putting us in danger again. I would love to have a mechanism where I can call Cobb County to say, they're in violation of where they should park. Can you come tow the car, or can we put a fine on the car to help speak the language of this is what we need to do as opposed to what we can to do? So with that said, I am not opposed to the variances at all because it will help get them off our street. What I am opposed to is not having a mechanism going forward to keep my neighbors safe, because it is not safe the way the law is currently written. And that's all I've got. I'm asking, I'm pleading, I'm hoping you guys will help us with this situation, because the church itself is tasked with something that it can't possibly manage. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This case is in District 1, so we'll forward that to Mr. Boulogne.
Thank you. Let me start with Mr. Peterson. Are we allowed to impose a condition on the use of an adjoining street as a condition of a grant of a variance?
It's my understanding that only the Board of Commissioners can establish no parking zones. So I'm not sure if this board has the power to put a condition on property that's not within the variance, which is the public road.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let me go then next to Mr. Hyde.
If you will come up to the podium.
So can you point out which one of these houses on Stone Mill is yours?
Just describe it.
That one.
173?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So it looks like directly past your property line, it looks like there's not a whole lot there in the way of foliage right now,
Correct, sir.
right behind 173. What size lot do you have roughly?
Half acre.
Half acre, and it looks pretty square, so your back line is probably somewhere around 150 feet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. If anyone else has questions of Mr. Hyde? Okay. Let me go then to the applicant's counsel.
Yes, sir.
With respect to Mr. Hyde, would it be possible to get him some, say, Noliard hollies along or just inside your property line as it abuts 173 in a line right there, just to minimize his view of this?
Yes, sir. We had a neighborhood meeting back in, I think it was January, and Mr. Hyde attended, and then I attempted to reach out to him and have suggested that meeting with him to establish some additional landscaping along there. So we are open to that and/or fence. Right now, there's a current, I think, 40-foot undisturbed buffer that's along his back line that's vegetated. It was left alone. It's got trees and undergrowth, but we can do something to augment that as part of this process.
Okay. Thank you. If anybody else has questions of the applicant?
I know this is a picture, and I don't know the time when it was taken, but I do hear the concerns of the person who is that was up on 173, the gentleman, that it's a pretty thin buffer between actually 173, 163, 153 of what you're proposing to do as far as bringing in traffic or bringing in cars to park temporarily, which I think then will become something more permanent. Do you have, I guess what I'm asking is, like, I understand that while you're doing the construction, if we do allow the first variance request for the front, you're still going to come to a situation where you're going to need more parking. Do you have like a future plan that you could show us or put together for us of what, you have this piece of property, you definitely have a huge traffic concern. I'm really concerned about the cars parked on Rocky Ridge, and sadly as a board we can't do anything about this except for neighbors can call the police department. Do you have a plan showing, will you be adding more additional parking on the space that you own?
We don't currently have a plan showing that. I wish we'd known, the question been put to us. Obviously, the church does want to prosper, but right now the plan that we submitted is the parking that we anticipate adding at this point.
Because I'm kind of feeling like this is just a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. Have you had meetings with the church in discussing, because I know that many churches come in and they have, this is what we're going to do the first year and a plan out. Since we know this is a severe parking issue, it's affecting also the neighbors in the back, and this will be so-called temporary, but you're going to see that it's providing a lot of relief. It might become permanent. Is there, I guess what I'm asking from you is there a possibility of going back to the church to sit down and discuss future development? And I know future development is, building a beautiful gym or building other out parcels. But I think in this situation, the urgency is more parking before any of these other things be done. So that's just my feeling is I feel that it's impacting the neighbors in the back. I feel it's impacting the neighbors on Rocky Ridge. I don't feel that by granting this variance, it's going to do anything to relieve the parking. I think you're going to find that this temporary parking is going to help a little bit, but I'm just really uncomfortable without seeing, I guess, maybe what the plan for the church is in the future. And if there is, because you do have a good amount of land, where you might put additional parking. That's just my.
The pastor is chomping at the bit to respond to you on the growth of the church. So, you want to come up?
Would that be okay if he came up? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Zach Carden. I'm the pastor of the church. I can answer some of those questions. Here's why this is an incredible catch-22. To deny the variance at this point, you see what land we have. We will have to go further back on our property to create more parking. We are at the point where we have 96 parking spaces, and yet we're sort of coming to the point where we're filling up the room. So we're not at the point where we can flip to go to 2 services. The future plan would be max out that sanctuary, go to 2 services at that point. And we don't have enough parking to get there. That's the problem. That's the problem that I encountered when I arrived, is we don't have enough parking to deal with the number of people who are coming, because people don't come bringing 1 car, they bring 2 cars, and we ask them not to. As far as the parking situation, I want to speak to this. As far as the parking situation on Rocky Ridge, I am compassionate over that. Just the other day, we talked about creating that buffer and putting signs on our own accord down on Rocky Ridge Road saying that our people are not allowed to park past that gravel area that Mr. Smith's talking about. On our own accord. It's nothing that you're going to have to do. We pledge to do that. We will ask anybody in our congregation to move. And I got heat on that, but it's the right thing to do, because there's no decel lane there when people turn onto Rocky Ridge Road, and you could meet somebody head on. So I'm completely in agreement with Mr. Smith on that, and we are working to make sure that happens. But as far as our future plans, I can't tell you what's after going to 2 services. All I can say is that we're really trying to locate that parking up front. We can pave that temporary parking area. I don't really want to do that. I mean, we're well within our rights. It's on our land to pave that parking area. I don't want to do that. I'm trying to push the parking. We're trying to push parking up towards where there's already traffic versus back towards our neighbors where they live. We already have some parking in the back there. We don't really want to have to extend that. We have land there, but we don't want to have to extend that. We'd rather have the variances to be able to push that parking to the front of our lot rather than the back of our lot. So denying the variances actually compounds the problem that these gentlemen are talking about right now, because we would have to push the parking back further.
If you were to push your parking back further, would you have a traffic team to assist? I know that you guys have a cop on Sunday mornings because I see it as I go to hike, but is there some churches have parking teams?
We have a
to help
parking
with
team.
logistics?
We have a parking team already, and those are the people I've instructed to keep those cars away now. After this past Sunday, we had a car that was parked 52 feet from the stop sign. Police officer was down there. I saw him. It was somebody who came early to volunteer. We hadn't had the signs out yet. And then he said, the police officer said, it's 52 feet, it's fine. Well, we then went in and asked him to pull his car back, even though it was within the proper limit, because there had been a complaint made. Our parking team wasn't out there yet, but we can instruct our parking team to make sure that these things are followed. If we're saying only park to the gravel, they do stay out there. They do double duty. They're in our parking lot, and then they run over there to Rocky Ridge to make sure cars are parked correctly. But we're willing to continue to do that.
I have one other question. If the variance was allowed for you to do the additional parking to the front on Ernest Barrett Parkway, how many spaces then do you have total?
Okay, so at that point, I would need the chart right here. So we would have, that's upside down, that's a problem. They didn't teach that in seminary, by the way. Let's see, the additional parking here, we would have, bottom right-hand corner. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, so the proposed additional spaces with variance is 32. Proposed new spaces without variance is 36. The total proposed parking spaces would be 164. If you double that, then that's the number of people we can have in our facility during a given service. At that point, we have room for 300 people sitting next to one another in our sanctuary. We're going to be flipping to 2 services at that point. The difficulty doing that now is that you have pretty much an empty room if you had 2 services, because we don't have as many people, as many bodies coming as we need. We need to hit that critical mass. But with that number of people parking, we would have ample opportunity to hit that number, then have 2 services, and then that parking works for us, having people leave and then come in with a good space in between those 2 times.
Well, I kind of agree with that, having 2 services, but you still can't split the number in half and say this many people will come to this service and this many people come to this service. You can't guarantee that you're still going to have a large number coming to the first and smaller number, or vice versa. So this isn't my case. These are just.
Happy to answer it.
I guess what I'm just looking at is that you're going to be spilling over into this one area while the construction's being done.
Right.
I kind of don't have much of a problem making that an additional parking space if you did an extreme buffer along the back of all those homes that are exposed to this, because I think the buffer hasn't been kept up. I think that it could be augmented with, I'm really been using these arborvitae trees because you can stagger them, so that it creates a very good soundproof, visual proof, and then they won't be looking into the back of the church. And I think that would, that's just my opinion. I've used it on several variances and have been by, and it's been very effective where they can't see through. And I think that the concern of the neighbor that just spoke is just, this is what's in his, invading his space. And, I really feel like a good double, triple space row of arborvitaes would help. And then this possibly becoming a parking pad. That's just my opinion, but
We're willing to help remediate some of that with some extra trees, as was spoken by Mr. Boulogne. I know that that's the heart of our church is to be a good neighbor. We're trying. It is very, very difficult with the number of people coming. I'm new, and so they're interested in who is this new person. So I get that. We want to try to do our best at this point. We're trying. We're really trying.
Oh, I know you are. It's very difficult. There's churches over where I live that have the same issues. So those are just things that Mr. Billowing can address with you.
Would you like me to step away?
You absolutely
Okay,
can
thank
have a seat.
Please have a seat. Thank you. All right. County staff who analyzed this property is who analyzed this variance? Let's see. Or can somebody on county staff just tell me how far into the setback the proposal is in terms of putting parking spaces and pavement?
And I'll take care of that,
Okay.
Commissioner Boyne. The front setback appears to be 50 feet, which is what the code requires for a church. And it looks like the parking is about maybe 30 feet into that area.
All right. Now, there's one other thing I noticed about this property, and that is that as I've come and gone from this parking lot several times and looking at this, the biggest obstruction that blocks the line of sight when one looks to the left is actually part of the wall or earthen support behind the wall of a detention pond that's shown here on Barrett Parkway. That corner is built up to the point that it actually obstructs the view, and I guess that was something that got approved when the initial site plan got approved for this property.
Correct.
Is there any condition I can put on this to have that at least revisited, where they have to meet with the county about doing something to lower that to enhance the line of sight there?
Well, I think your first step in solving that problem is having DOT to go out and make sure they still meet sight distance with that structure, on their property.
Well, the standard space is 9.5 feet wide, correct?
No, it's 8.5 feet wide.
8.5 feet wide, okay. So just counting the parking spaces along the road, it looks to be roughly 200 feet from that corner to where folks are coming and going from this parking lot, would be my estimate, which for folks going 50 or 60 miles an hour, which I think is common on Barrett Parkway. I know the legal speed limit's 45. It's not a whole lot of time to get out of traffic or get into traffic. So what kind of condition could I place on it at that point?
Well, we need to have DOT go out and make sure that they still meet sight distance for the driveway location.
Well, my concern is the DOT already had a shot at that, in my opinion, messed up here. Now, I appreciate the DOT does a lot of good for the county.
And I wouldn't say they messed up.
Well,
they need to go out and take a look at
when
it.
somebody was allowed to build an earthen bank that obstructs the line of sight coming and going from the driveway, which is only about 200 feet away, I think they messed up. So I guess the condition I can put on this is just perhaps to at least require the applicant, if any approval is given, to meet with the DOT and county regarding the possibility of lowering that wall somehow so as to stop impairing the line of sight.
Yes, to achieve sight distance.
Now, if we could go back to if we could put the map back up regarding and it looks to me like the parking, to the extent the parking affects anybody's line of sight, Mr. Hyde's property is 173, but it looks like the property is most affected by looking at parking lots. If we as we expand the parking lot, are going to be 173, 163, and 153. So those would be the ones we would want to maybe add buffering to. Would the applicant like to comment on whether, we have only seen pictures of Mr. Hyde's view. Do you have any opinion regarding the adequacy of the existing landscape buffering along 163 and 153?
This is the current site plan, and the parking lot that Mr. Hyde's photograph shows is this.
If you'll use the microphone so that we can pick you up. Thank you.
I presume he's showing you this parking lot, which is developed and in existence. No variance was required for that. There is an undisturbed buffer that runs along the back. We've not had any requests from any of those other neighbors, and we have interacted, with the neighborhood extensively as far as requesting additional buffering. We had suggested to Mr. Hyde adding perhaps a fence and supplementing the buffer there. But we don't have a specific plan for you right now.
Do you or Pastor Cardin have any idea whether the owners of 153 or 163 share this concern about the adequacy of buffering or what's been done in that regard?
To our knowledge, they don't, but
That's something you're willing to entertain?
we're willing to entertain that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, anyone else have anything? Okay. Well.
You may be seated.
If I could, though, on that issue, if we're talking about the buffering as it relates to the temporary variance, then I would suggest that maybe there should be some cost-benefit analysis. If this parking is here only, for the duration of construction, but we had already talked about adding a fence and some additional. We've got some topographic issues there too, the way the property drops off. So.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm not an arborist, I'm not an engineer, but I know enough, and I'm very concerned about safety, particularly the way that, for whatever reason, that wall on that far side of that detention pond, in my opinion, blocks the line of sight and creates an unsafe condition, and somebody needs to address that, and I hope you will, and I'll put a condition in place to try to get a discussion going in that regard. I'm not our DOT. I wish it had been done right in the first place, but I'll do what I can to not make things worse. There was discussion at a prior work session at our prior February meeting about the fact, and 3 years ago when the first variance request came up, that at some point Barrett Parkway here is supposed to get expanded width-wise. My understanding is the lane is about 12 feet wide. So my concern is the request is problematic and excessive to a point. I do note that Barrett Parkway on the front, as it fronts this property, is fairly a straight line as it goes across this property in what is otherwise a fairly curved area. I also noted that when one exits Rocky Ridge Road, it's mine, and again, I have not done a survey, but it's my impression that the exit to Rocky Ridge Road sits a little lower than where the detention pond is. So I have a concern as to anything being done to alter the elevations in that area. So with those concerns having been stated, my motion would be to deny the request for a variance as one is standing on Ernest Barrett Parkway in the right front along Ernest Barrett Parkway, to allow it to the left front to a limited degree such that this plan be altered such that no portion of the parking spaces be any more than 20 feet into the right-of-way. So there would still have to be 30 feet of right-of-way from the curb of those parking spaces. To the edge of the church's property along Barrett Parkway. There would still have to be 30 feet undisturbed. Additionally, as to those new parking spaces, to the extent they're within the right-of-way near Barrett Parkway and what is the left front of the property as one looks at it from Barrett Parkway, the elevation of that parking surface is not to exceed the current elevation of that area. And my concern there is to not do anything to in any way limit, further limit or impair the vision one has of that area from Rocky Ridge Road. The proposed temporary parking pad, my motion is, my motion will be that variance be approved for up to 1 year, provided gravel has to be placed there. Additionally, as a condition, and again, I'm not an arborist, but my motion would be that a condition be that the church add not fewer than 20 Nellie R. Stevens hollies, at least 12 feet apart on center, roughly 10 feet from the property line of 173 and 163 Stone Mill Lane, so as to limit the view that those property owners have from their backyard of that parking area. And with an additional condition that the applicant meet within the next 60 days with county representatives, including DOT representatives, about what I consider to be a less than safe condition created by the height of the wall at the corner of the detention pond nearest to Ernest Barrett Parkway.
Can I get a second?
No?
Second.
May we place our votes, please? Motion passes. Mr. Peterson, if we can take a 5-minute recess, just so that we can prepare for our regular case agenda.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience during our break. We are now going to proceed with our regular case agenda. Mr. Peterson?
And we're going to move on to the next case. We're not going to do anything else. All right, next case is variance case V35. Lawrence Irwin and Monica Irwin request a variance to reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing approximately 660 square foot metal detached garage from required 100 feet to 4 feet adjacent to the northeast property line, 39 feet adjacent to the west property line, and 87 feet adjacent to the front property line in land lot 389 of the 16th district. The property is located on the west side of Winterwood Way, north of Winterwood Court. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V35? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
If you will each state your name for the record, and you have a collective of 10 minutes.
Okay.
Total.
My name is Monica Irwin, and
I'm Lawrence Irwin.
Barbara Dornbush.
Barbara's her neighbor.
And what's your proximity to the, you are the applicant, I'm sorry. Go ahead, continue.
Well, I'm the applicant. Okay, we have an existing structure. It's been there for over 9 years now, and we have never had any concerns from any of our neighbors. We've got all the information from our neighbors. Nobody has any problems with it. New people moved in 3 years ago, and something has happened recently within the last 6 months, and there was a problem with the property line. So they had a survey done, put up a fence, specifically on our property line, or 3-4 inches off, but right down the property line, which we can't do anything about that because it's legal. So after that happened, 4 days later, we got the variance order saying that our thing was out of variance. And I think it's a disagreement between neighbors that has caused this, because it's never been a problem before. You have something you want to say?
Yeah. I'm Lawrence. I'm a coach by trade. Monica was a teacher for 40 years, me over 30, and that was in Cobb County. I'm a coach. I have equipment. I've got a picture of our house, but the right side of our garage is too small for my truck. Okay, our house is not large enough. Okay, and so 10 years ago, there was just a guy from your code place came into our neighborhood, lightning struck one of our neighbors' house, and I asked him, said, what do I need to do because I can't park my truck and my equipment inside our garage. We have a crawl space and that's it. But so he said, well, here's what you got to do. You got to pour you a slab, which we did. And, and we thought everything was great. All of our neighbors, the property line, as my wife spoke of, changed from our previous neighbors to the neighbors we have now. They were there about 15 years, beautiful people. Family before that. Monica and I have been there over 30 years. But I built this structure, put my truck in, keep my equipment in to maintain my job. We never thought in a million years we would run into a problem with anybody. We have graduated the kids around our neighborhood. We've taught them all. We've got just absolutely marvelous neighbors. I mean, this is something new to me. I don't know, I didn't even know what a variance was until I asked my brother, who's on the staff up in Cherokee County doing inspections. But I said, look, he goes, well, just go, they'll have a variance, you'll have a hearing. But anyway, we built this building. I have a picture of how beautiful the building is. And it's right there. And this is where it's hidden beside our house right there, not to protrude. And then we came in. And furthermore, where that place is at, we had a sinkhole. When the houses were built, they buried all the stumps. The side of our house right there, and all that driveway, and that building was completely in the ground. I mean, it was 5 or 6 feet down. So I filled all that in, and we poured a new driveway, and we put a place to put my truck and my coaching equipment. And that's about it. And everything's been good for 31 years. We lived till today. So, and this is my neighbor.
Okay, wait. One more thing. The topography of our lot, I don't know if you can see it from this, but it definitely goes downhill, and it continues downhill. So there was really no other place to put the building that it wouldn't have slid down. We would have been too close to the back neighbors if we had moved it closer behind the house. We would have been too close to the house if we had moved it behind the house. So that was basically the only place to put it. And here's his truck, which does not fit in our garage.
And that's why we built it. We always think we do the right thing.
Okay, Barbara?
I have been their neighbor for over 26 years. We're in a cul-de-sac. And again, like Lawrence said, there has never been a problem ever in the 26 years I have lived there. The people in between the Irwins and myself are the ones who have started this. And the reason I am here is to testify that these people, and I was friends with them, but she would literally tell me, I'm gonna put this fence up and I'm gonna run it right down his property line. I'm not gonna do that to you, but I'm doing it to them. I mean, it's like all of a sudden a switch flipped and she lost her mind. They even ran a piece of the fence that has nothing to do with closing in anything right up against all the trees where their dogs are buried. And they planted those trees. And she told me she did that to spite them. And then all of a sudden, there is the issue with I call it the big green doghouse. That's the cul-de-sac's fond name for it. All of a sudden, that's a problem. They've been there for 3 years, have never one time said a word about that being there and that it was an issue for them. All of a sudden, it's an issue. 4 days after this past Halloween, she's out there visiting with us, brought her new puppies for us to see and everything. 4 days later, she files a criminal trespassing warrant on these guys. That's when I quit speaking to her, because she didn't know I was there, but I actually saw everything, and Monica was on her piece of the property, and the neighbor, no, you weren't there?
I wasn't there.
The neighbor was on her side of the property, and they were having a conversation, which I could also hear, where Monica was simply stating that she didn't think it was right that they put that fence right up against those trees and did it for spite. And that is my thing. I don't know what's going on. Never had a problem in over 26 years, and all of a sudden we've got spiteful neighbors that never had a problem with anything until about 6 months ago. So that's my piece. And I don't mind the big green doghouse.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Based on the photos that I've seen, it looks very nice, and I saw that you had several signatures from neighbors that don't have a problem with it. So I make a motion that we approve your variance as requested.
Thank you.
And is there a second?
I will say, we're retired teachers. And to go survey
I'll second
things.
it.
Well,
When you
thank
go
you
survey-
thank you so much. We'll
When you
continue our
survey
public hearing.
something that costs a lot of money, we're retired. And it really put a hit on us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate everything. Go ahead. Can you?
So I'll second it.
Okay, can we place our votes, please? It passes. Our final case, Mr. Peterson, for the day.
Okay, next case is variance case V41, Northern Borges. Request a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is an approximately 416 square foot pavilion to the side of the principal building. Number 2, allow an accessory structure, which is an approximately 551 square foot carport to the front of the principal building. Number 3, reduce the side setback for an accessory structure, which is an approximately 551 square foot carport from required 10 feet to 5 feet adjacent to the west property line. And number 4, reduce the front setback for an accessory structure for an approximately 551 square foot carport required 40 feet to 18 feet in land lot 1184, the 16th district. The property is located on the south side of Lower Roswell Road, east of Lindsay Road. Is the applicant present? Yes. Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V41? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would you please come forward to be sworn in, present your case.
Good afternoon, Board.
Good afternoon. If you will state your name and if you would give us information about your variance request.
All right, my name is Andrew Washington with Washington Design Group. We're architects and engineers, planners, and I'm here to represent this project for Mr. Borges. Not a teacher, so it's going to be a tough act to follow, but I'll do the best I can. So what this is about, the client has two new accessory structures that are put on the rear of the existing home to its side and at the front of the existing home to the right side as you enter onto the property. Those accessory structures are the sizes that are indicated in your diagram. What's important to note, though, is that those structures they're held by footings, and there's no new impervious area that's going to be generated by the placement of those structures. The front structure is so that he can just park his vehicles underneath them. The back structure is behind the pool that was permitted last year, and so it's just so they can have a place where they can sit out while they're swimming. The existing structure at the very back that was requesting the additional 5-foot variance has been there for years, and it's right back there where a little stream is, but it's away from the house. So we're asking for relief for these areas, and hopefully you'll approve the variance. These structures, by the way, are pergolas, and they look great from the street. They're just designed where he can put plants or whatever on top of them. The vines will grow down towards the sides of the structure or towards the ground. So it's actually a beautification of the area. The neighbors don't have an issue with it at this point, and we think it'd be a great addition to the area and to his property. I have no more comments.
Good afternoon. So you represent the applicant, and what is your business?
Washington Design Group, architectural engineering.
So were you part of working with this applicant in the design and build of these structures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did any of these structures get permitted?
No, those structures were, I'm working with them in terms of getting the variance, but not in terms of designing the structures, though. They had those done by a pergola company that just comes out and put those on site.
So, but did the applicant get a permit for these structures?
I'm not aware if he did. He did for the pool, but I'm not aware if he did for the structures.
Okay.
Let me mention this, I'm sorry. It's important to note that the structures have no walls. It's just a pergola that has a overhead top canopy. Okay.
Correct. Thank you. You can have a seat now.
Okay, thank you so much.
So yes, indeed, this applicant came came in on 4/12/2023 to get an accessory, allow an accessory use of a proposed in-ground pool, which there was we had no issues with it, and it was approved. So the applicant gave us a site plan, and that site plan shows none of these structures. So the existing structure in the back, the existing pavilion that's behind the pool, that was not part of the variance last year, and this carport structure was not on this plan as well. The concern is that it didn't get permitted because in the permit process, they would have made a notation that these aren't allowable. So what they're asking with regards to the first structure to the side of the principal building, to allow the accessory structure 550, the square foot carport, this isn't allowed. This is on top of the sewer. And they do not allow, Cobb County does not allow any structures on top of the sewer, as well as the existing pavilion that sits to the back of the pool. This is in the sewer easement, and that isn't allowed. And then the existing structure, which wasn't existing when this came in 2023, this existing structure, according to Mr. Frank Gibson, who is our erosion control supervisor, this isn't a creek buffer and it isn't permitted. So because of these things are not permitted, this has not been, there were no permits, this cannot be built, and wouldn't have, even coming into Cobb County to get a permit would not have been allowed to be built, but now they're here. I'm ready to make my motion. So I make my motion that we deny this variance. The accessory structure number 1, 2, 3, and 5. And to also include the one in the back, this existing structure in the back of the property that's on the creek buffer. So these will have to be removed, and I'll give the applicant 60 days in which to have them removed. And then upon 60 days, I'm asking code enforcement to go out to verify that they've been moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Place your votes. Passes 4-0. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our regular extended consent agendas. We have, Mr. Boulogne.
Can I just pose a question to Mr. Peterson again
Sure.
at this time? So we had discussed at the last meeting the fact that I didn't have the authority to just act on a portion of the variance and hold a portion of the variance, right? It was all, basically, the whole thing had to be dealt with at one time, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so assuming I consider it crucially important to get the temporary parking in place and try to get cars off of Rocky Road, given my concerns about elevations relative to Rocky Road, if that elevation condition that I placed on building within the setback of up to 20 feet within the setback, if that poses an engineering problem, when's the earliest the applicant can bring that back?
So for this particular variance, you approved one and you denied one, correct?
I'm sorry. Approved one on condition that that it not be as severe an encroachment in the right-of-way, or in the setback, rather, and denied one.
Okay, for denial, you know, once something is denied on a property, then they can't come back for 12 months for any part of the property.
Correct. But the one that was approved on condition or modified, they could bring that back promptly, correct?
No, when something's denied on a property, the entire property is prejudiced for 12 months, no matter what.
Okay. Okay. Is there, the applicant's counsel during the break mentioned to me that there was an issue regarding the possibility there are drainage swales and things of that nature. Is it possible this time to create an exception to the elevation condition for drainage swales?
Well, I think we would need to have the applicant come back in here. I think he's still out in the lobby talking to his clients.
Okay.
If the board wants to reconsider.
That condition?
And reconsider, yeah, or any part of it. So we would need to have a motion to rescind the motion, correct? And then a motion to reconsider the condition.
Can I have said motions, please? To rescind the original motion, and then we'll restate.
I'll just use rescind it, I'll second.
Okay. Move to rescind and bring the applicant back in so we can address that one condition.
And that's for case V25, Marietta Community Church.
Yes.
May I have a
Okay.
second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, and can we place our votes?
All right.
Passes 4-0.
So can you come back up here? Do you have any pictures or anything of that area so we can try to come up with something that might be more workable on that condition?
May I suggest on the issue of denial that you haven't denied the variance? The request was that we get a variance from the front setback.
Yes.
You've approved it with a condition that it not apply to the right side of the driveway, and that might give us more flexibility.
That's what I would have thought. However, my paramount concern was to get the temporary parking going.
Right.
Right. So let's talk about your concern regarding the area where we talked about coming 20 feet into the setback, up to 20 feet into the setback to allow parking.
My concern was with the language that you added, and I'd love to see an exact language, that we not alter the elevation within that parking area. And I don't know, does that only apply within that 20-foot incursion into the setback?
Yes.
Because I know the topography there, I didn't get a chance, may drop off, and there may be some grading that needs to be done.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that the elevation of that area is not to exceed the current highest point within that area?
That would make more sense, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So yes, sir.
Before we take any formal action, we still need a motion to reconsider. We rescinded the previous vote.
Okay.
And then there'll need to be a motion and a second to reconsider.
All right.
And then there can be additional dialogue and debate among the board.
All right. Motion to reconsider then?
May I have a second, please? Second. Votes, please?
Okay. So can we just say id, that we just had that discussion and we just still agree to the same points? And I'll move ahead with the motion then. My motion would be as
If we can have the applicants have a seat while you make your motion?
It's fine.
Okay.
My motion would be to, I don't wish to repeat everything I previously said. So how do I go about doing that?
You have to. You have to
What's that?
restate it so it's clear.
It has to be restated in its entirety, okay? We'll try.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Since there's some question about the drainage and where you want to put this, and I know that this is an urgency on the part to have this temporary parking, and we don't have pictures. We have just a drawing. We have this issue that you want DOT to look at. I just don't feel comfortable going forward. I know that we got to get traffic off of this, and if it's just for the purpose of pulling traffic off of it, I don't know if we can partially approve using this pad for temporary, but I don't think we can. It's a whole variance. I just think that we're moving through where the applicant, in a discussion with you, has concerns about some of the drainage, you have concerns about this other obstruction. I just would like, we don't have any pictures. And I just would like, instead of me just rubber stamping and saying, yes, let's go forward, and then it comes back and there's issues and you've got a year before you can do another variance, I just think it would be more prudent to wait 30 days and come back and charge the applicant with meeting with you on the site, meeting with DOT on the site, and moving forward with a better picture of what we're approving than me just voting yes for this.
The applicant is not in a position to have further delay, and they need to either move forward on this or consider another way to develop the site. And I appreciate the efforts.
Okay. I'm going to try again then. So we do have a map in front of us with contour lines on it. And from those contour lines, and again, perhaps staff can help me out here, but the area where the parking is going to go, it appears that the area nearest to the road, now I've lost my number on the contour. Can you slide it down a little bit so the area to the north comes back to us? No. Okay. So it looks like the contour line shown. Well, I'll just let Mr. Peterson help me with this one.
And one thing to keep in mind, Commissioner Boulogne, is these contour lines that you're looking at were done prior to the development on the property in the past year.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the development plans right now, and along that front parking area where it says 1044, do you see that?
Yep.
Along Bear Parkway, 1044?
I see 1045.
Right there where the hand is.
Right above
Okay, I
the
see.
Along that
1044.
entire front area, the topography is showing 1050 right now. So they built it up a little bit.
Okay. So I'm seeing 1045 near where the entrance, actually north of where the entrance is. Is that correct?
The entrance is at 1047 now.
Okay. Do you see the 1045 there, though, on Barrett Parkway?
Yes.
All right. Then as we go a little further down Barrett Parkway, we see 1035.
On Rocky Ridge.
Oh, going towards Rocky Ridge?
Before we get to Rocky Ridge, we see the number 1037 is there, right?
1037,
Yeah,
1039.
and those numbers are still good numbers.
Okay. So these are above sea level. This is the statement above sea level, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if we went with 1044, that would approximate anyway the elevation at Barrett Parkway, given the fact that the lay of the land and the topo allows it to drain off to the what is shown as the northeast portion of this property.
Are you talking about right where their entrance is? The right in, right out? At that, right at the road, it's 1047.
I'm sorry, what's that?
It's 1047 right at Barrett Parkway
With the current development.
with
Yeah.
the current development.
Right, but again, the point I'm looking at nearest to where the roadway is here is at 1045, and then if one comes back 50 feet, at least originally, we would have been somewhere between 1045 and 1040.
Going south on Barrett Parkway?
No, going west to east across this new lot that they picked up as part of the church property.
Yeah. You know, the numbers that are actually on Barrett Parkway have not changed at all. All they changed were the numbers on their property. So all the numbers on the roadway surface for Barra Parkway are still the same numbers. So at their entrance at Barra Parkway, the right in, right out, it's 1047.
I understand that, but this proves my point that we go downhill, because as we go across Barrett Parkway, by the time we're at Rocky Ridge, we're at 1040.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. All right. So, and then how many LERs was it I said last time? Since I have to restate my motion, does anybody have that? You can't play it back. I have to guess. Okay. All right. Well, here we go again. Attempt number 2. There are 3 distinct portions of the variance request. One is for temporary parking to the rear of the church. That request is approved on condition that there be gravel placed in the parking area surface where that parking is to take place prior to any parking there. Additionally, within 30 days of today's date, the church is to plant not fewer than 20 Nellie R. Stevens hollies that are at least 6 feet tall at present, not less than 12 feet apart on center, along their, within 10 feet of their property line, roughly in a line, as their property line abuts. And can I get those street numbers on Stone Mill again? Can we get the picture that shows the street numbers?
Hey, John Paul, can you put the addresses back on the layer? Thank you. 173.
.163 and 173 Stone Mill Lane. So, no, just those two. Because those are the 2 impacted by the view of the temporary parking. And as to the request for a variance, as one stands on Ernest Barrett Parkway, looking at the proposed front right parking and front right variance, that request, my motion is that that request be denied. As to the request for a variance as to the front left parking, my motion is that that variance be approved subject to a change in the plan such that the encroachment within the setback not exceed a total of 20 feet, including the curb, rather than the roughly 30 to 31 feet as shown in the plan. Additionally, an additional condition on that parking area where the permanent variance is approved is that the elevation of that parking area not exceed 1,044 feet above sea level.
Is that the parking area or the encroachment area?
Only to the extent that comment only pertains to the extent that the parking is placed within that variant area where the variance is approved within the setback. Thank you.
I think per John and Brian, we are to approve, we're not supposed to deny one part of or the variance, or no? If we approve one part, we approve all, or is it?
No.
Okay.
What we were talking about before with Fred is approving a part of the variance, holding part, and moving on with something else and coming back to it. But he can approve and deny this all at once.
Okay. Sounds good.
If I may, would it be possible, instead of saying you deny it to the right, could you approve the variance for the setback conditioned on it only applies to the left of the entrance? And then we don't have a...
What I prefer, Commissioner Bloin, say is that the parking in the front yard setback of an R district shown on the plan for the proposed parking on the south part of the driveway not be approved, but he approves the parking on the north side of the driveway to let it encroach into the 50-foot front setback.
To the extent what?
Well, instead of saying left and right, just say north and south. The one you want to approve is on the north side of their entrance driveway. The one you don't want to approve is on the south side of their entrance driveway.
Do I need to start over? Can I make a clarification to my motion?
We just clarify it. I think they have it.
Can you say it one more time, John?
Okay, so Commissioner Bloyan's going to approve the request for number 1 on the north side of the entrance driveway, and it's not going to be approved on the south side of the entrance driveway. So then we know what to look for in plan review.
May I withdraw it on the south side so that we don't have a denial on the property?
Sure, that'd make it easier.
I would like to deny the request for the front setback on the south side of the entrance.
We'll withdraw it.
Withdraw on
Okay.
the south.
That'd make it a lot easier on me.
At this point, do I need to say, do I need to review your clarification is fine with me?
Turn your mic on.
Thank you. I don't know when I turned it off, but I apologize. But, all right. So my comments regarding the denial as to the portion on the
south side of the
south side are withdrawn, and then their place, we're allowing the applicant to withdraw that portion of the application.
Yes.
And that variance request is withdrawn to the south side of the entrance. To the north side of the entrance, my approval is, again, subject to the same conditions regarding the elevation of the surface not to exceed 1,044 feet above sea level, and the extent of the variance to not exceed 20 feet into the otherwise applicable 50-foot setback.
And that would be fine.
Can you add, because you put it on the one we did before, is that the temporary parking on gravel is a year, not to exceed a year?
Yes. I'm sorry, thank you. The temporary parking on gravel is not to exceed a year in duration.
May I get a second to that motion?
Second.
Place your votes, please. I'm sorry, I voted wrong. Sorry. There we go. Pardon. All right, that passes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our regular case agenda. We now need to handle some housekeeping items. Specifically, we need to approve the minutes from our last BZA hearing and our last work session. Have you all had a chance to review those?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes for the BZA meeting work session?
Move to approve.
May I get a second?
Second.
Place your vote. And have we also reviewed the minutes from our special called meeting as well as our minutes from our appeal hearing? Can I get a motion to approve those minutes as well?
Move to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
And please your vote. That passes also. And can we finally get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I have a second?
Second.
So moved. Can I place your votes, please? Thank you. We are adjourned.